Brianna Joy Gray dishes on where Bernie went wrong. So I'm going to repeat a lot of arguments during this segment, I guess. The people in this video are going to give a really cartoonish picture of how politics works, and I'm going to correct it.
2016 felt like a very different race because there was not that same hesitancy about talking about corruption.
Because he didn't like Hillary, because Bernie didn't like Hillary. So, yeah, but this does get into the bigger questions about Bernie's campaign. I remember when Zephyr Teachow wrote an article, and the article was like, look, this is just the facts. Joe Biden's corrupt. Here it is laid out.
Okay, so the first thing they said, Bernie's campaign style changed from 2016 to 2020. So in 2016, Hillary Clinton was one of the least popular presidential candidates of all time. Like, nobody liked Hillary Clinton. A very small minority of the Democratic Party liked Hillary Clinton, like actually liked her. Bernie Sanders was able to attack her because people did not like her. And it was a small field too. If Hillary lost support, all votes would go to Bernie if people didn't vote for her. So it's a totally different ballgame from 2020. So in 2020, you have 20 candidates. Even at the end, you have 4, 5, 6 candidates. If Bernie Sanders went really negative against Joe Biden, and Kyle Kulinski himself made a segment about this, every time Bernie Sanders went negative on Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders' numbers went down because he seemed like a angry old crazy grandpa because Joe Biden was popular. The more Bernie Sanders was like, my good friend Joe Biden, we have some disagreements. I know all the populist lefties hate that, but Bernie's numbers looked better when he did that. And also, when Biden lost votes, let's say Bernie's attacks did work. Biden's votes did not go directly to Bernie when he lost support. Hillary's votes would go to Bernie when there's only 2 candidates. But in this race, with Warren, with Buttigieg, with Bloomberg, a lot of Biden's votes, if he lost votes, went to those other candidates. So these 2 elections are a totally different ballgame for really simple reasons, but they're drawing up this like conspiracy or whatever, like Bernie Sanders was co-opted or something like that.
Out for you, and Bernie behind the scenes was mad at Zephyr Teachow for that. And, I know...
First of all, that's accurate, right? That he was upset about it.
Yeah, well,
he was publicly mad about it. It wasn't even just private.
Yeah, that's true.
And Zephyr Teachow, she is a legal professional, I think, or something like that from New York, I want to say. And she wrote an article that was really aggressive versus another candidate. And Bernie Sanders didn't like the way that made his brand look.
When that happens, I actually was doing a hit on MSNBC, like at the time the article came out, and was asked about it. And so from my perspective, I got a call immediately from the comms director, like apologizing, and he was obviously very upset. And, I think the reality is that article was approved. She didn't step out of line. That article was approved by the comms department.
Right.
And I think that she was kind of unfairly thrown under the bus for it. She wasn't stepping out of line.
She wasn't freelancing.
She wasn't freelancing. And so I think...
So the comms department said this letter that Teachow wrote, that Zephyr Teachow, I think that's how you say her name, I'm not sure. But they approved it. The comms department of Bernie's campaign approved it, but that doesn't mean Bernie approved it. I mean, he might still be mad about the decision they made.
Internal miscommunications ended up falling on her quite unfairly.
She was
and
the
other people who were also involved in the process unfairly took that hit. But more substantively, I think she was right. And that was exactly the kind of messaging that I think would have given Bernie a much better chance to win.
So it's that, correct? I agree with you.
I believed this at the time, but the voter base simply wasn't there. All of the revolutionary, working class, socialist type people were already supporting Bernie Sanders. Maybe a couple were supporting Elizabeth Warren. None of those people were going to respond. None of the people voting for Joe Biden were going to respond to extremely negative messaging because, like I said, Joe Biden is popular. Joe Biden has a track record. He has a relationship with Democratic voters. He was Barack Obama's vice president. Bernie Sanders stayed away from Obama. He tried using Obama at the very end in advertisements in Florida, if you remember. That fell flat because he did it too late. Showing you have relations with popular politicians within your own party tends to help you, which is why political connections matter, even if you're anti-establishment or whatever. And everything Bernie's getting done now with this infrastructure bill that he's trying to pound through is a result of him playing smart in politics, him not being a populist outsider or whatever. He's getting in the thick of things and getting real work done. But the idea that Bernie Sanders could have went on the stage and just pointed a finger at Joe Biden and said, "You're a corrupt war criminal a-hole, and you shouldn't even be close to being president. You should be in jail. You are a corrupt. You are literally the devil." If Bernie Sanders says that about Joe Biden or Nancy Pelosi even, and Nancy Pelosi isn't liked nearly as much as Joe Biden, but in a Democratic primary, all that matters is Democratic voters. Democratic voters do like Nancy Pelosi. They love Joe Biden. So that's why things play in a really weird way. The three people on screen have an inability to look at politics in a way that evaluates their surroundings and in a way that can understand other people's mind states. And I had to grow this. I had to mature into this position where I'm able to do this to some extent. They're only looking at what appeals to them. What appeals to me, what appeals to you as a voter, isn't going to appeal to the majority of the Democratic Party. So when you see candidates talking mostly about gun control and identity politics, they are doing that because that is where the voters are in Democratic primaries. That's who they're trying to get. What they're talking about here isn't based in reality. It wouldn't have worked if Bernie Sanders was some type of like mini revolutionary.
Also, the other giant failure, and I think the numbers really bear this out, is that he didn't make the case. We just ran this experiment in 2016. You guys said the centrist was more electable. She was not more electable. She lost. Joe is exactly like Hillary ideologically.
Hillary 2.0.
I am the most electable. Only I, Bernie Sanders, can beat Donald Trump.
I think Bernie could have used that route a little bit more. Would it have worked? Maybe he could have convinced people that we needed more of a push towards excitement and energy and young people. But even within his own race, he couldn't really bring young people out to vote, even with the biggest outreach program in American history geared towards young people. I don't know how much that argument would have worked. Did it play out in practice even? I don't think so. The reason Joe Biden won in the swing states in which he won is because of suburban voter switching. Like in Pennsylvania, even in Georgia, the suburbs around Atlanta switched big time to Biden. Those were the big swing counties or whatever in these states. It wasn't like some big populist push to get these people elected. A lot of these suburban voters would not have voted for Bernie Sanders. It's complicated. It doesn't make sense to us, but that's how voters respond to this. There is no urgency for a revolutionary class takeover of unions in the Democratic Party. You have to do this in a very smart and precise way that gets people on your side in a very good faith manner. You can't call 90% of Democratic voters idiots and then have them support your policies. And I don't think these guys understand this.
Now, we know in retrospect that's not true. Biden did end up beating Donald Trump. But at the time, that's the argument you had to make in order to move the poll.
Pandemic and like mass mismanagement.
Because all the polls showed on the actual issues, everybody was with Bernie. It was overwhelming. But the one area.
What's my big thing that I bring up? My big thing about politics? People don't vote off issues. They vote off what their brain tells them. That's why retrospective voting is a thing. That's why emotional voting is a thing. That's why shiny object politics is a thing. People respond to irrational indicators on why they vote certain ways, or, for why they vote certain ways.
Where Biden was absolutely obliterating Bernie was this issue of electability, and he didn't push back on that.
I'd agree.
And by the way, I know people yell at me when I say most voters don't vote rationally. I guess you can make some rational arguments for like Biden. For example, in Georgia, if you don't have healthcare, what is more realistic to get you healthcare? A public option passing through like a Biden admin, or expanded Medicaid or something else through reinforcing Obamacare? What's more likely, that or Medicare for all, a complete overhaul of our healthcare system? Yeah, like you don't know if Bernie Sanders settles for a public option or anything. We're not getting that now, of course. We're not getting that. But at that time when you're voting, which one seems more realistic to actually get you healthcare? Which one has been more realistic in the past the past to get you healthcare? The moderate route has paid dividends, and people haven't really seen the more radical wing take over. That's why you need to build a full movement. You can't just attack with 4 people in the House called the Squad of a bunch of freshman congresswomen. You can't do that. You need to make voters have confidence that progressives can get stuff done, and that's part of what Bernie's current goal is. A lot of Democratic voters look at progressives as like edgy, cringy outsiders that are like children who have they have a good spirit, but they don't really know what they're doing. We need to flip that script and say progressives can be leaders. We can be adults in real government. We can do big boy stuff. I think Katie Porter's a good example of that. Like Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, AOC's turning into that.
also think that the campaign at some point started trying to reach discrete demographic groups that they felt
Yep,
like
go Sixers. Is this Embiid? Yeah, this is Embiid. Ben Simmons, I hope he is traded to a different team. I'm mad at Ben Simmons. And I mean, the team cohesion will not work if they keep him.
I'd agree. I also think that the campaign at some point started trying to reach discrete demographic groups that they felt like they had to win on the basis of appealing to what they thought that those demographic groups wanted, as opposed to realizing that, Black Americans' number one concern was electability also. And that instead of trying hard to like pitch this ad using some South Carolina elected woman, that stuff is fine. But really, they just want to know that you can beat Trump.
Yeah.
Yes. Right.
Talk a little bit more. You called it the Black misleadership.
But having friends like what's his name? The guy who is the top recipient of like big pharma money. Clyburn. He oh my god, dude. He got so much money from Big Pharma. But Clyburn, having those local ties, being friends with him pays so many dividends because voters around there trusted Clyburn to make a good decision on their behalf. Like, we trust this guy to deliver a candidate that can beat Donald Trump or whatever. So when he endorsed Biden, that gave him a big rocket boost at that time.
Misleadership class.
Yeah.
What do you see as like the roots of that dynamic?
What's interesting is one of our guests, Pascal Robert, made the case that there is a
I'm from rural. I am from rural.
There are relationship
Rural.
dynamics that involve having roots in Black fraternities and sororities, having a real solid presence at HBCUs, having the phone number of local pastors.
If Bernie Sanders would have gotten every HBCU vote, I'm pretty sure he still would have lost. The pastors thing is a good point. I think they tried that, though. Bernie's campaign wasn't exactly centered around any religion or anything like that. It was secular ideology and vast progressivism and, a class movement.
the tip of your finger, and that those kinds of relationships are not going to be built in a campaign cycle,
Right.
But they're really formative to being able to get the kind of grassroots support in the community that someone like Biden is able to lock down seemingly through osmosis.
Yeah.
And Matt, I think historically, my own kind of take, I guess, would be that historically, identity has been a fairly decent proxy for Black interests in America, if only because the bar was so low in terms of what we were actually advocating for. There was so far.
Ooh, a point we always need to bring up. We should always bring up this point in these discussions. The working class. I know a lot of people want to bring up working class as if Bernie Sanders had the entire working class on his side. But if you look at the working class numbers, when it comes to the Black working class, which a lot of progressives forget to bring up, the Black working class supported Joe Biden by a big majority compared to Bernie Sanders. I think Joe Biden got like 60% of the Black working class. So we often ignore that. Why did so many Black people vote for Joe Biden? For many reasons, of course. Bernie Sanders is far left. A lot of Black people are not far left. By default, they kind of vote Democratic because, Republicans are Republicans. If this was a different country, you would see a distribution. It still wouldn't be Black people voting for the far right party, most likely, for multiple reasons, of course. But not just because you're Black doesn't mean you're like a big lefty or whatever. I mean, the opposite's true for certain groups, for certain communities. So like, it's really weird how Brianna Joy Gray always generalizes and looks over what I just brought up. Spencer, what's up, my guy? Hello, thank you. So many times Spencer has been here, every single stream, repping.
For us to go in terms of what we were making, what the kind of political demands we were making. So, especially through the 50s and 60s, you had genuinely committed.
AS, me too. 100%. That's what I did. I was like, they screwed over Bernie again. I'm not voting Biden. I might even vote for Trump. I'm going to show those corrupt people. I'll show those corrupt people what's really up, baby. I'll vote Trump. Dude, I literally said all of that when Bernie Sanders backed out of the primary.
Who were making wins, who were winning real gains for the we were making. So, especially through the 50s and 60s, you had genuinely committed activists who were making wins, who were winning real gains for the community. And a lot of those.
Oh my God! If you saw the South Carolina push Bernie made, it was impressive, but it didn't work at all. It just didn't work. Everything she's talking about was done in South Carolina. It just didn't work. If we want to do like a retrospective of where Bernie Sanders' campaign went wrong. Do you think Clyburn's influence is as effective? Not as effective, but when you have a culmination of a bunch of like more center Democratic politicians crashing in on one race, I think that outside influence does definitely matter, especially with all the money and attention it brings to that candidate that they're supporting. So like is it Chantel Brown or whatever against Nina Turner? I think that's her name. I don't know much about her. I just know I looked over like where she got money from, how she got it, who endorsed her. Hillary came out really heavily, which by the way, Hillary Clinton, I saw her post something about like getting vaccinated, like encouraging people to get vaccinated. And Hillary Clinton saying that is an act of harm to our goal of getting people vaccinated. Nobody who likes Hillary Clinton is not vaccinated. Trust me. There might be like a 0.0001% of Hillary Clinton supporters that is not vaccinated, but her saying that is 100% a bad thing. She should, if anything, Hillary should be like, all right, guys, don't get vaccinated. Then more people will do it. That's how much Hillary Clinton is disliked. She shouldn't be talking about anything that is important. Just give her opinions on the sideline about why she sucks and get out of the picture, Hillary, please.
People who came into office at that point are still the people who we're with. Like we're still dealing with people whose claim to fame is, being there at Edmund Pettus Bridge or, having, got the Dickens kicked out of them in some civil rights context. So, there's a reason that trust is there. And I think it's, especially for the white left, not necessarily wise to make direct attacks without being able to acknowledge the service that some of those folks have done.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, when someone becomes as corrosive a presence as Jim Clyburn has become, you have to be willing
I'm mad that Bernie lost. Fascism it is. Let's ignore the 5 million better things that are happening now under Biden. Nina seems to have more attention. I think Nina, she has done major work. She has put the work in 100%. I don't know enough about the district. I saw the poll numbers crashing in, which is expected. Don't be super scared about poll numbers crashing in. That is expected. Whenever you get closer to a race, you get a more realistic picture of polling. It's always more accurate as you get closer to the actual day. But she put the work in for that area. I don't know if she has enough firepower behind her. Like I said in my other video about Nina Turner, when you go on record saying you hate all of your party's leaders, it's hard. A lot of people are partisan, and that includes in primaries. If you don't walk the party line and be authoritarian or like anti-establishment at the same time, there is a fine line you can walk that like Bernie was good at walking, that AOC is good at walking. But if you go fully like Joe Biden is a half bowl of poopy or something, voters are going to remember that, dude.
Bring the heat. And I think that's where it's really important to have surrogates who can deliver a message, to find people who similarly have investment at the community. Like, Jesse Jackson endorsed Bernie Sanders, but it was very, very late in the game. And I can imagine a world where he came out swinging early and offered a real visible counterpoint to the narrative that look at all these black figureheads that love Biden. Biden must be the guy. We know Joe, all of this stuff. Like Jesse Jackson going on TV after Clyburn says we know Joe, saying, I know Joe, and what I know isn't great.
Yeah.
Let me run down the list.
Right.
Jesse Jackson's a little bit of a dicey figure in the black community as well. So, but it would have helped. Someone like
Harry Belafonte.
Harry Belafonte.
Oh, yeah. Of course.
Yeah, Harry Belafonte.
A little bit of a dicey fig. Okay, a little bit. There's a lot there, Brianna Joy Gray. If Jesse Jackson would have came out 10 years ago supporting Bernie Sanders, nothing really would have shifted that much. Just because he's black doesn't mean he appeals to all black voters. Like, dude. Not everybody's into socialism. I'm sorry. It takes time to convince people to come to your side on issues. It's not just going to happen 1, 2, 3, babe. Like, sorry, man. Sorry. I mean, gal. I hate that, dude. When I say like dude or man or what's up, guys, I feel bad sometimes because I'm like, what am I supposed to say? I don't want to be like, hey, what's up, guys and girls and gals. I feel like that's even more sexist than just saying guy. I don't know. I don't know.
Here that
He's a legend,
was
that
just not doing.
Right.
He was just
Guys
ailing,
is
and that's
universal,
what made him come out.
isn't it?
But there have to be more than just like this handful of people that you can deploy in this way. Also, outside of that context, Bernie had more great surrogates than anybody in America.
Yeah.
I think
What are the
Ariana
odds she
Grande, I
wins?
think, is the number one, has more Twitter followers and not Twitter, Instagram followers than almost anybody in America, in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I think that's the case.
I'd believe that.
Like Cardi B. I mean, you have these people who could be posting once a week. Bernie Sanders is going to cancel.
Yes, Cardi B. Yes, she is black. Therefore, all the black voters shall listen to Cardi B. Just like when Kanye. Oh my goodness. When I saw Lil Wayne and 50 Cent go out for Trump, and then I saw tweets from like old white people saying, "Well, there goes the black vote," because 50 Cent and like Kanye and Lil Wayne said they're voting Trump. Oh my God, that's the energy I'm getting right now. Holy crap, dude! If Cardi B would have only tweeted more, Bernie Sanders would be president. Yes, yes.
Your student debt. Are you registered yet?
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders
He
is
did win that
Sanders would be
demographic, though,
president.
overwhelmingly. You know what I mean? Like the young
They didn't turn out
demographic.
enough.
Yes.
They didn't turn out enough. That's
Right.
true.
Yes.
But also, you could argue he
Echo.
should have been able to reach other demographics that he didn't reach.
I'd
you know?
agree. And
Yeah.
to ask those people to talk to their parents more, because that was part of the story of the Latino vote, right? Part
Right.
of the story of the Latino vote is that historically older Latino voters tend to rely on guidance from their kids more because of language barrier issues and cultural factors and things like that. So you
50
have
Cent was thinking my money matters more than my being a black man in America, because many of my issues that I faced by being black, I don't have to confront as much because I am now rich. I'm pretty sure he complained about taxes going up, although under Biden, his taxes barely go up because none of the people who are voting Trump based on taxes understand how tax brackets work. They assume like, oh, the top bracket's 40%. That means I'm going to be paying, or it's not even, it's going to be what, 25 or 28? The top bracket's 25%. That means I have to pay a quarter of my money in income taxes. That's not how it works, man.
young Latino voters liking Bernie
Okay.
going home.
I will look up the Nina Turner numbers real quick. The Nina Turner polling numbers.
Culture factors and things like that. So you have young Latino voters liking Bernie, going home, explaining it, and then having wonderful wins like we had in Nevada. Or less heralded, but I think equally important, the overwhelming response we got from non-white voters in Iowa. It's only 2% non-white,
Yes.
but like 99% of them
Yes.
voted for Bernie. And
Yes.
that was awesome. And that was the consequence of a lot of real grassroots
And the
organizing.
DNC and Pete Buttigieg came and be like, we're not going to count those ones. How about we just not count these satellite caucuses with all the immigrant voters who voted overwhelmingly for Bernie? That was
Wasn't a great
amazing.
moment.
Did they do that? They're not going to count certain satellite caucuses? Did that happen? Did I miss it? By the way, one thing to look at with money in politics, especially with focused races. So let's say Nina Turner is campaigning in an area for a year and she raises $1 million. We'll use that for good proportions. So she raises $1 million in total advertising money and does what she could with that money. Does what she can with that money, connects to as many people on the ground as she can. She's gonna reach a lot of people who are like activist types who are very involved in like politics. But she isn't gonna hit that many people who are like really loyalist, partisan Democratic voters who usually follow like party leaders. So I know some people want to dismiss the impact of money in politics, but if Nina throws in her $1 million raised by small dollar donations across the country, then you have Clinton, Clyburn, and a bunch of other party leaders come in to endorse her opponent, and you have $100 million come in of advertisements that are very negative, and then on those advertisements, they're showing a bunch of strong Democratic voters that Nina Turner called Joe Biden a piece of poopy before he beat Trump. Before Joe Biden beat Trump, Nina Turner did not offer good enough support for Joe Biden. After that happens, a lot of the negative advertising overcomes the positive advertising that Nina did to start off with, the positive campaigning. Voters, and this is a political science fact, the reason people use negative campaigning so much in campaigns is because it works. People respond to negative emotions. One of the most successful Trump campaigns was the defund the police commercials. He would have like a video of a robbery taking place, and then somebody tried to call the cops, and the answering machine would be like, "I'm sorry, you are unable to reach emergency services. You cannot talk to a policeman right now because the Democrats have defunded the police." And then the girl that was getting robbed would get like murdered or something. Those advertisements, those negative advertisements, might seem cartoonish, might seem funny, but they work. People respond to it. So after that happens, races take a big turn, and now things are getting nasty back the other direction. And another thing, too, with campaigning, how that works, if Nina Turner is there early and she has a 40-point lead, who do you focus on as your main opponent? Another opponent can come from the bottom with 10 times as much money and attack you directly. But who do you attack if you don't know who your number one person to focus on is? And you've been running, weak positive advertisements for a long time. It sucks.
That was really
And then
something.
had people, I will never get over Soledad O'Brien saying after Nevada that we have to wait until an actually diverse state votes to figure out what the people want. She's Afro-Latina and dismissing Nevada and all of those voters like that.
So here's another thought I
I
had.
thought ads weren't as effective or weren't as useful anymore. For the presidential elections, it's a little bit different. You don't have as much of a close relationship to the person you're going to be voting for. But when it comes to like a local congressman or something, or a congresswoman, if you are going to vote for Nina Turner, let's say she knocked on your door, you're a big Democratic voter, and you're like, oh, she's awesome. But then you see an advertisement, and you see Nina Turner called Joe Biden a piece of poop and refused to support him against Donald Trump. You might say, oh, I'm not voting for her. She did that with Trump, with how dangerous Trump was. He tried overturning our country. Dude, wow. Nina Turner, that's who she is. I'm not going to vote. Like, that matters for local races.
Had where I really think Bernie,
and I know,
sort of,
I know National Congress isn't, or federal House or whatever, isn't exactly local, but it's still close enough.
Messed up in the campaign is that I would have defined all of these policy positions that he advocates for. I would have called that moderate. I've been like, I'm the moderate. Joe's the one who's extreme. He's the one who voted for the Iraq War. He's the one who voted for the Patriot Act. He's the one who outsourced your jobs. He's the one who did the crime bill. He's the one who did the bankruptcy bill. I'm the one that has the moderate positions. Do you think that an argument like that would have potentially resonated more?
Yes, but especially because regardless of the moderate part, the willingness...
Prediction. I predict that Nina Turner is going to hold on. I think she's going to eke it out. I know the numbers are closing back in, but the most favorable poll for her opponent was done by her opponent's internal campaign. And they do this, by the way, so they can put a poll out there to give supporters optimism to get out to vote. Like, oh, I can win. Make sure you're there to vote because every vote matters. But their internal votes show a 7-point gap still. Everything done by a bigger organization was a bigger gap. I don't think there's enough time to close 10 points unless if something damning came out. But like I said in my other video, a lot came out about Brown's history that people don't like as much either. A lot of negative stuff. So I think Nina, that's my prediction. I think she's going to win. I think it's going to be a close one, but she's going to win by 3.5 points. That's my plus whatever. I don't know. Whatever the numbers mean. That's my plus minus 3, whatever. I don't know.
Yes, but especially because regardless of the moderate part, the willingness to tee up all of Joe Biden's transgressions.
No, Nina didn't say she's not voting for Biden, but she was like calling Joe Biden a really bad option while voting for Trump at the same time. And many voters simply don't see it that way. They like Joe Biden. Democratic voters. She's in a primary right now. She's not in a general election.
I think is enormously powerful and was never done. And the closest that he came was that last Ides of March debate. The debate after which we all went home and quarantine happened and it was the pall fell on America. But it was still Joe Biden's my friend ultimately. He can win. He would be a good president.
That's what would be crazy. He can win.
Oh, that was talking
Bernie,
to you
what are you doing?
Like, it's over.
I think he can win. But please pick me.
It's difficult because I was having a debate with a more centrist friend of mine recently.
To respond to what you said, the big points Nina needs to really pound to voters, which she has been doing. I think that's a really positive. This is a really positive thing she has been doing. So she needs to give voters confidence she can work with Joe Biden. The two big things are, I will be fighting for you. Everybody knows that's her message. Number 2 is I will be able to work with Joe Biden, and I will be a good member of the Democratic Party, pushing it in the right direction. And you need to also convince voters that your direction is the good direction. So those 3 things. You're going to fight for the regular person. No corporate donations. My opponent is taking tons of money. Number 2, I can work with Joe Biden. Nina Turner said if Kamala Harris can do it after calling Joe Biden a racist, I can. And then my way is the right way. And I'm going to be a good Democratic Party member and lead us in a better direction.
And they were like, why do you hate Joe Biden so much?
I will represent
it's not
you.
Personal. I don't hate Joe Biden, but let me ask you this. Do you expect me to have affinity for the guy who was the architect of the crime bill? Like, I'm like really asking you.
Right.
You know how much student debt I have. Do you think that I should be sanguine about the guy who made it so that I can't discharge this in bankruptcy? Like, how many very specific things? Like, I'm not fun at parties. I admit it. But I was like, don't come at me over my mild critique of Joe Biden when I have every right to be furiously hateful of the man. But I don't think that's useful to me to take my energy there. But if he were correctly portrayed, if he were accurately described, he should be considered a not great person. For a lot of Americans whose lives he's directly impacted, mass incarcerated, thrown into bankruptcy, and ruin.
On the oh crap, it's over. On the thing brought up about Joe Biden and the crime bill, At the time of its passing in 1994, 60% of African American voters, wait, no, not even voters. I think 60% of Black Americans were in support of the crime bill. Um, Actually, I think a higher proportion of Black people supported the crime bill than white people. It was only like 50% of white people who supported the crime bill. You know, the crime bill that Joe Biden was the architect of or whatever. Most Black mayors who had issues with high crime rates also supported the crime bill. Um, and it's really weird that and we know a lot of the issues with the war on drug, but you need to look, we're looking at this in a democratic function. We're not looking at this in an isolated bubble where we know all the outcomes. And we know today that Black people support the police. So messages like defund the police isn't exactly gonna fix anything. So how do you approach voters who have this opinion of these politicians and also their policies? And a lot of goodwill is given to like Bernie Sanders and his involvement with crime bills, but you know Joe Biden is viciously scorned for being a part of the other crime bill in 1994. Wasn't Bernie a part of this too, to an extent? But like, I think you can place more blame on supporting the credit thing that Biden did. I thought that was really cringe. But the crime bill is such a complicated topic. You have to ignore a lot of people to say that it wasn't popular. Not to say it was good. It wasn't. I don't think it was good. But we're not talking about good or bad. We're talking about democracy.